Is my cap on the right way? Yeah, I think it's right. Hey, where's your cap? Where's your uncapped cap? It's on the table.
I think it's on. Am I doing that again?
Yeah, you got the uncapped cap. This is the logo, bro.
Am I doing the? It's time to get uncapped, or should I just leave it on low key? My hair is a mess.
Just be cringe. Accept who you are.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Uncapped, a new podcast ran by me, CM Etsu, and GM Lemoria. On this podcast, we're going to be explaining how the game basically works to you guys. Mm-hmm. You know, we've been playing for around 8 years, pretty much since launch.
That's right.
And, you know, there's times where we're at our desks here in the office, and we're kind of just, well, let's say discussing at our tables, which again, sorry, CMGM team, if you guys are caught in the crossfire and you have to like listen to us ramble on for hours. But, you know, me and Lemoria have been playing for years and we just really wanted to share our knowledge with you guys. So we figured why, you know, have these discussions at our desk when we could just have them here.
Yep, so as mentioned, part of the inspiration of the podcast was these heated debates that we occasionally have.
Friendly
Debates, arguments.
Yeah.
About just any kind of game topic, usually mostly PvP though, right? We've had like a sort of an argument recently about, for example, Dark Knight core skills, okay? And for that topic, we're gonna go into, I think, at a later episode, because if we start talking about it now, I think we're gonna talk all day.
Yeah, don't bring it up. It's kind of a sore area.
But another inspiration for this podcast was, after 8 years of playing, we've seen a lot of similar questions and similar concerns being asked by players who are perhaps new to the game, returning to the game. Clearly around this time of year, actually, we do see a lot of new players, returning players. We just had the ball a couple weeks ago.
Had the ball, Dosa just got
came
released
out
recently,
Yeah.
so everyone's like probably asking themselves questions like, hey, how do I like learn a new class? What are like the things I have to look out for? So we kind of like want to, as we share our knowledge about like just the general complexities of the game, we mostly like want to aim at showing you guys how experienced players approach just PvP, whether it's learning or hopping on a new class or just toying like with new ideas and whatnot.
Yep. And a lot of what we're going to be doing on this podcast is going to be picking apart the game.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna get pretty granular on the discussions,
because there's things like that experienced players do,
yes.
right? But they aren't actually able to vocalize why they do it. We're trying to like use this like podcast as a way to really touch bases or more so, you know, really bring out like those concepts, let's call them, that experienced players don't know how to vocalize. We want to be able to do that for you guys so that you guys can be like, oh, like this is how you do, not only how you do X, but why you do it.
The best parts of our game, I should say, is really the complexity. I believe our combat system has a lot of depth. I believe it's complicated in terms of just like the mechanical aspect, but also in like the thinking element, especially when it comes to PvP. Right. And that's why actually the first topic we're going to end up talking about today for episode 1 is what makes a good PvP player.
That's simple. It's not that simple, but
yeah, because you've PvP for a while.
Right.
You have a background in PvP.
Yeah.
Playing the game. Not everyone does. Not everyone who is playing Black does PvP. My background also came from PvP. But I think something we can both agree on is that there are clearly players who are really good at PvP. And I really want to look at what exactly are they good at that allows them to be successful. But what's something that is, I guess, easily definable and tangible that new players, if they can focus on, allows them to become a good PvP player?
Well, there's several things, but I think we can like really narrow it down to class control is probably going to be like the biggest one. Like what does that entail, right? Like you have class control like movement, combo execution, protections and cooldown management, and
Sure.
being able to like improvise like what's going on like a whim, depending on like the situation, right?
And before we talk about that, I think I agree.
Yeah.
Class control probably
I think it's
is
like
the
the number
single-
one first thing that needs to be learned.
right. Because if you look at the way our classes are designed, you're gonna come in as a new player and you see all these skills. Man, like you're just like, oh, this skill, like, and then
You have like
might
20,
be
30
unfamiliar.
skills.
You might be unfamiliar also with like the control scheme,
Right.
right? Like in Black Desert, like you have, it's not like a hot
Action
bar focus
combat,
game,
like you
right?
need to know like Shift F, Shift L and B.
Right. So the physical, tactile input of like Shift Q, like how many games ask you to press
It's weird.
Shift Q? It's right. It's like physically a bit like strange to press.
And you're not even thinking about bombs. Like
Yeah,
Shift.
Shift X, Shift Z.
Yeah,
Like, so,
it's so like, it's so different.
right. And then you have to do this for how many skills? 20,
Yeah.
30 skills. So until you get, I believe, a good understanding, mechanical understanding, right? Getting the muscle memory down.
You won't be able to execute anything else.
Yeah.
Like how you know like you're really getting there at being good with your class control is the moment when you're able to think less about what inputs you have to do in that moment, depending on the situation. And then you can just, when you're able to just do it, I think that's like a pretty good spot to be in when you can start like, you know, executing things like combos, wrapping behind someone, positioning, because we've all been there. Like when you're like first, especially when you're first learning a new class and you see a bunch of people on your screen, you're like, what do I do? You know what I mean? Like you freak out, you don't even know what input to do. Like you're stressed understandably because you're like first learning this class. But then as time goes on and you get like more experience, it starts to shift to, oh, I don't even have to think about it. Like you just do it, right? It's just not even a question.
I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
What's your main class?
My main class, if you guys do not know, is Dark Knight. Specifically, I love to play Awakening. However, I do know how to play Succession as well.
Do you play any other classes at, let's say, a solid PvP level? Any other classes?
At an acceptable level.
Acceptable.
Let's call it at an acceptable level. Yeah. I would say Awakening Sorceress. I would say more than acceptable. I actually ended up maining it for 2 years. I mained DK for like 2 years, and then I mained Sorc for like 2 to 3 years, and then I guess now we're on 2 to 3 years again on DK, and when I say that out loud, I'm like, wow, that is a long time.
No, yeah.
But I would say, yeah, DK, Sorceress Awakening, and then I'm also like, we'll say acceptable levels are Awakening Ninja. Maybe.
Okay, so you tried out quite a few then.
Oh yeah, I've played Awakening Ninja. I've played Succession Mystic, although that one is like just barely acceptable, maybe just a little bit below. And I think that's about it. Oh, Succession Megu, like especially on release, I played that for like a few months. And I think that's about it that comes to mind.
For me, I only play one class, which is just Ranger.
I didn't know that. I didn't know you played Ranger. That's
I've
crazy.
literally only played Ranger since the beta.
This guy plays Ranger?
Yeah. It's not to say I don't know much about other classes, but
Yeah.
playing and focusing on an acceptable or strong PvP level, it's only Ranger. And I'm not saying to be good at Black Desert PvP, you have to main only one class.
You're right.
But I think the sort of concept I want to express or explain is that, you know, we're playing such a difficult game from like a mechanical standpoint.
It is insane.
Let's talk about like, for just as an off tangent really quick, like the speed of our game, right? Like our characters are moving at Mach 10.
Fast.
We've been moving insanely fast since 2016, right? Like Head Chase Solar Flare from Warrior is an engage that's like blink levels quick, and that was out 8 years ago, 9 years
Even
ago.
a skill like Airstrike on Awakening DK,
Right.
really fast. Succession, it's even faster. You know, you got classes like Succession Kuno, Succession
Yeah.
Ninja.
Our
Super fast.
game has always been fast.
And I think that's like what kind of like one of the things that like
That's what
really
makes it
drew
fun.
me in.
Right,
you
that's what
know?
makes it fun.
Not just the like I would say like the movements, obviously it's part of the combat, but like one of the things that makes the combat so fun is like the speed and like just being able to learning how to control your speed and using it like in combat and successfully pulling something off, it's really satisfying.
So when you're in PvP and everyone's moving at like Mach 10, 100 miles per hour, right? How can you keep track of anything if you are too focused on just controlling?
You can't.
You can't.
You literally can't. Because in the time you produce the thought, oh, maybe I should eat, you're gone. Like,
No.
you have to be able to just do it.
Exactly. You have to get so fluent on a class, right? On your class, that you can actually free up the sort of
The brain RAM.
the
brain
RAM. Is it
RAM.
the RAM, the
I call it
memory?
brain RAM. Like
Sure.
I need
the bandwidth
the bandwidth of my brain.
so that you can actually pay attention to what's going on.
Right.
And I really think that's like the biggest first step. A player who is good at PvP almost certainly is, can we use the term master? A class master.
Class
a class
master.
expert. At least like an expert. They already know, like, without even thinking, maybe Shift F does a forward guard on Ranger, right?
You don't need to think about it. It's just, oh, I need forward guard right now. I have these options available. You need to know your options and when to use them, how you can use them, and what are the potential drawbacks of each one. Because, one animation might be longer than the other.
Yeah. So then let's dig into class control then, because let's explain a bit more about class control.
Right. So earlier we said, it's not only fluency, but movement, combo execution, knowing all the cancels and linkage, like how do they connect together, protections and cooldown management, and being able to improvise.
Then let's start with, let's say you want to get better at your class.
Right.
Maybe you're learning a new class for the first time, right? What is the first quality of a class that you have to get into your muscle memory? What's like the first thing you hone in on?
Well, it's still movement, right?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's for me, like when I'm checking out a class or I'm learning it, I'm always on the movement first. Reason being, because movement can kind of tell you what options do I have to execute my other abilities. So let's say we're learning movement and I want to look at, hey, this movement ability, how far does it move me? Is it a short or long distance? Does this movement ability have collision? How much stamina does like using like this movement chain give me? And not all movements created equal. Some is super armor focused and some is iframe focused. And as we start to like really dissect our options available to us, it kind of tells us how we can play. Maybe I'm more likely to opt in playing in the front line. Like this class has the capabilities to be in the front line more. This class has the capabilities to stick in the back line and maybe shoot out damage.
So when you say that, a type of movement ability that allows you to play frontline, what would be an example? Because I think you said not all movement is created equal, right?
Right. Well, if I'm more like super armor focused,
Sure. What does that let you do then?
it allows me to stay protected 360 degrees around me, which, if you're playing in the front line, that's very important because there's going to be people flanking, there's going to be classes in front of you, to the side, shooting from range from behind you. So like knowing that you're like more super armor focused in your abilities and your movement, that you can at least move it with that engage. And then in doing so, maybe your healers like mages and shies are able to like, since you're in super armor taking that damage, maybe they're able to, recover your HP for you while you continue to push forward.
For me, I also agree. I think if I'm trying to master a class, you got to get the movement down.
Yeah.
Movement, it's probably the most important quality of a class because we just talked about the speed of our game.
Yeah.
Our characters we're sort of anime protagonists.
Boom.
Literally blinking behind each other's backs.
Are you ever like watching
the ninja? What is he doing? Like substitution, like
he's just
log jump, and
the block jump comes out.
Nothing personnel, kid. Just, and then he stiffs you, and then he grabs you, puts you on the floor.
When you're
and
like
that happens
watching,
like how fast?
It happens it's like when you're watching like two people duel like in an isolated 1v1 in BA, and you're just seeing like teleporting. You're like, I can't understand what's going on. Meanwhile, these two are just disappearing and reappearing into existence.
And they probably know exactly what's going on.
And they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like this is all like intentional,
And from the outside perspective, it's like
you're
watching
like,
anime, like they're just all. They're just like blitzing each other.
Yeah.
Because because the speed of our game just demands this from you, like, hey, all of our characters can move pretty much this quickly, right? At least like the fast characters that are allowed to move that quickly.
Yeah.
Like, this is like the baseline. You know, you have to be able to react to this,
Right.
and you have to make use of your own mobility. And so, in terms of making use of your own mobility, you have to understand that in movement skills, there are so many different attributes and qualities to them specifically.
Right, because we
So
touched on like super armor.
Yeah.
Frontline engage. If
What
I'm
kind of
more-
protection? You look at what kind of protection.
What kind of protections do I have? Is it
You look at the distance traveled from. Is it like a skill that you press one input?
or do you need several smaller inputs?
Yeah.
several
So like,
smaller
let's say
abilities?
like a rook in chess, right?
We got the chessboard. All right.
So you got a rook in chess, and he moves like vertically and horizontally.
Right.
But he can move across the whole board in one move, right? On the other hand, you have the knight, and the knight has to take
Burst movement. Small close
Yeah.
quarters combat.
He's got a lot of like the small movement. He's got like to jump. He's got to jump around, right? And then,
It's kind of like fighting a ninja. Like all of a sudden,
yeah, they're jumping around you.
He's close enough. He block jumped. Like.
Because once you understand like classes, let's say you're playing your own class, does your class have that long distance movement, or does your class have primarily short
Right.
hoppy movement, right? And they don't really have great point A to point B. Okay.
Right. And what are my capabilities with this movement?
And once you
Right.
get that, you mentioned the playstyle, that's how you sort of understand the playstyle. Because the frontline engager classes, maybe you might see like they have the ability to hard start the fight, just run into you.
Yeah.
Right?
Like
how many times
Warrior-
have you seen the Warrior? He just like the
Warriors
Solari
in
match
my
starts.
soul. So you said Solari. The Warriors E-buff. I'm going at. You already know if he E-buff.
Yeah.
He's going in. It doesn't matter what's going. He's going in for that grab engage.
Yeah. He just frenzy dashes, charging throws out of the gate, and just tries to take down,
Yep.
put you on the floor. And
Right.
like we're like 2 seconds into the match.
And you're like, huh?
And if you're a new player, how do you even react to that?
You don't even know that like that might happen. Like you have to. You kind of have to experience it, and then you're like, okay, they have
That's possible.
maybe E-buff is up this round. Now I have to account for that, right?
Yeah.
But you have to know what your options are. I'm sure some of you might be wondering like why there is a chessboard here. It's because Lemoria has gotten me into a little bit more chess lately. Like, he explained it in BDO terms. I'm like, whoa, I do this, but in BDO. But bringing it back to like what we talked about earlier, I don't know like you need to learn what options you have available. For example, with a pawn, you should know that if you get the pawn to the end of the board, you have the ability to turn it into the queen.
Yeah.
if
Or
you
any
need to.
piece.
Or you should know that if your king or your rook hasn't moved at all and there's an empty space between the two, you are able to castle and swap places and put the king next to the rook. You need to know your options in the similar sense that you need to know what movement options you have available, what your skills can do, what cancels they can do, and how you can flow in and out of them.
I know we wanted to mainly talk about movement, but our game is just like it's that complex that
There's
like
so
everything's got to like sort of be related to each other,
Right.
right? Because let's say you don't have great movement. How are you going to get into position to set up CCs?
Exactly.
Because at some point how do you get your opponent on the floor? You're just going to kill them like straight damage trading. That's not always going to work.
It's not always going to work.
Right. So most players, they die because of a CC. Gets them on the ground. They take bonus damage. They get hit by multiple people at the same time.
Right.
Right. And that's usually the killer. When you're CC'd, like you get hit from multiple people, and that's what pushes it into like the one tap territory.
Right.
So once you have the movement down, I think whether or not you do this like as a brand new character leveling up from like level 1 to 60, whatever, or you're trying out a new character in the trial characters, right? So you already have every ability. I think you just really need to know like, oh, WF moves me forward, shift A or D sideways, lets me do like this lateral dash, and then once you have all of that under your muscle memory, I think you just got to learn how to like put someone on the ground and kill them.
Yeah.
Yeah, like CCs, right?
What options do you have for CCs? How fast does a CC come out? What is the recovery animation on that CC? If I go ahead and use this ability, is it going to come out really fast or is it risky? Is it protected in the first place to use this ability? Is it range, melee? What's the AoE? You can see as we start like saying this out loud, there's like a lot of different things that go on. It's not as simple just pressing the button, although sometimes it can be.
Yep, it can be.
But you need to know these things because then it allows you to know, oh, I'll use this in this situation, or I'd rather save it for another.
I think what a lot of players will sort of maybe not fall into a trap. They don't know what to use, right? Because they're new to the class for maybe. They're new to PvP. They have a hard time figuring out like, hey, what's my go-to CC or what's like my...
It's my best option.
What other terms do people like to use? Bread and butter?
Bread and butter
say
combo,
bread and butter
or
combo, yeah.
bread and butter CC.
I think a lot of them will get
fixed
on a certain combo because they're recommended to try for this CC and this CC instead. I think what's a little bit more important is, although I like to promote the idea of trying to be flexible for a new player, it is sort of good to have that initial,
you have to have a initial baseline of understanding.
Yeah, of like what the go-tos are. Where you get this information, like a video or a class Discord is not really important. But I think there's you should try to figure out what reasons why like certain skills are placed in the beginning of a combo.
Right. So
like why do they recommend this skill first? Or if they're explaining multiple different types of catches, you know, if I catch with this stiffness, or if I catch with this float, or if I catch with this knockdown, why do all the follow-ups look different?
And I really like that you said, why do they? Because then it starts becoming how do I do this? It changes from how, because now you've gained that fluency. Remember, now you're able to control your class. Now it's turning from the how do you do this to why do you do this? Because if you don't know why, then you're going to start using abilities in situations where it's maybe not even necessary in the first place. Yeah, like why? Maybe why did you use shattering in this instance? Oh, because I wanted to stay in frontal guard and be protected. Why did you use Spirit Hunt into Twilight Dash here? Oh, because people were surrounding me and I needed to disengage while staying fully protected with movement. You know, it's important to understand the why so that you can then start adapting to situations.
Why do Dark Knight Awakening players say Seed is the best catch? Why?
That's easy. It adds a super armor to
with the core.
With the core.
Do we need to get into that? Nah, no, we can't. Just move on. Let's move on.
Call back to the beginning of the episode.
Okay.
I mean, you run Seed Core. Well, I run Seed Core, and the reason being, my reason, is because it has a CC on Seeds.
Yeah.
Seeds has a CC, and I want it to be guaranteed. That means if someone's throwing a CC ability at me, I want the only thing that could take me out of Seeds, either me dying to damage because I was low HP or being grabbed.
Sure.
Other than that, I want to be able to just throw it so that I can have the opportunity to catch someone.
Seeds is also not it's not a skill with like a 15 plus second cooldown.
No, it's around 7 seconds.
Yeah.
So it's pretty safe to throw out. You don't have to feel too worried about, let's say, wasting your cooldown.
It also comes out like pretty fast.
It comes out pretty fast.
It's ranged. It's not like the longest range skill out there, but it's good range. It's good range. It's good range.
Mid-range abilities, has AoE.
Yeah. Has a little bit of damage on it.
Right.
So it's gotta it even has movement.
Yep. It moves,
you can go
if you use the
backwards and
flow, it moves you forward. If you use the right-click flow, it moves you backward.
Yeah. I think what is probably more important than the CC type itself, because we were talking about like the different types of movement, short movement, and then like long movement. What's more important than the actual CC type itself, knockdown, float, whatever, is looking at the qualities of the CC ability and how it's afflicted. We were just talking about it. Range, right. How fast is it, right? What's like a super slow, what's the slowest CC in the DK kit?
I think.
So let's say Awakening DK, Comma Slash, like Awakening DK is probably like Comma Slash.
It's probably Comma Slash, yeah.
Yeah. So how can you Comma Slash someone that's like flying around you? It's like trying to baseball bat like a pitch that's like 1,000 miles per hour.
But when you get that catch though, it really does feel like I'm like, no way. Yeah, you hit a home run.
It's almost like luck, right? But when you get the seeds catch, you're just like, this is my typical. This is my normal
my
gameplay
go-to.
pattern. I expect this to happen.
Therefore,
right?
I know what to do next.
Yeah, so you have to pay attention, just like with movement and the types of movement. You have to pay attention to how the CC comes out. Is it quick? Is it range? Is it low cooldown, so it's generous from you being spammable? You can't use Balance Strike all the time.
No.
Why not?
In fact, well, because so Balance Strike on the Awakening DK kit, if you guys don't know, it's similar to Airstrike. It moves you forward in iframe, and then you come out. Although for Awakening DK, Airstrike, the absolute skill version, you cannot cancel. Like you're forced to go through with it. Yeah. But with Balance Strike, you can cancel it with an iframe. So it allows you to be really flexible. Not only will it take you from the awakening state to pre-awakening really fast, you can also cancel it to move around. However, the caveat is it is a 36-second cooldown.
Yeah. It has a CC on it.
It has a CC on it.
But
it's I don't.
How many times do you catch people with Balance Strike?
Like
once every 3 Solari games, maybe?
Not even. Maybe once every 5 to 10. Maybe 10, to be honest. Especially in Solari. Because since it's a long cooldown and it's an iframe, for me, it's more important to save that for disengages. You know, disengages are more important to get away from versus like, oh, if I just engage one time with Balance Strike, Airstrike, now I'm put in a position where, man, it's 36 seconds. That is a long time. So many things can happen in 36 seconds. A whole round can conclude in 36 seconds. So I'd rather just save it for, you know, an important scenario. Like I need to get away now. And that's the perfect skill because you can cancel it and then go into Airstrike once you're at a safer distance. And then you don't have to worry about that unprotected portion of that next ability.
Yeah. We're still on the topic of character control, by the way.
I know, that's all.
We're sort of like splitting around, but that just shows like as much as I want to like try to stay organized and clean
it's
with
tough.
a lot of our talking points, it's tough because the game's just so complex. So, okay, just to backtrack so we kind of understand where we've been talking. Again, what makes a good PvP player, right? Class control.
Class control.
Class control.
We're still on class
We're still on class control. And points about class control, movement.
Right.
Right. Oh, but I'm willing to bet that because you played DK for so long, you can move on DK without even looking at the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe not even. You look at. Okay, I'll let you look at the screen. Okay,
but there's a screen. You guys can't see it.
You can't turn on any UI or cooldowns.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure you could move totally protected.
I can.
Without even like thinking about it. You have, and what's the term? Because you're totally fluent. You're totally fluent on the movement.
I don't even have to think about it.
All right, so you got the mouse keyboard. All right, so while you're doing this, let's just have a conversation. Okay, I'm gonna throw out some hypothetical situations for you, and then. All right, let's just say you're just staying protected. You just want to do some protected movement, right? So you can do all this without looking again because it's natural. You get a feel for the cooldowns. You get a feel for the input. Once that's all in the muscle memory, right? It's just natural, right? Now let's say I want to introduce an idea. Okay, let's say you want to get behind someone with like some kind of micro move. Pretend an awakening witch is right in front of you right now, and she's just casting earth skills one after another, all forward guard. So you can just CC from behind, like express, let's say, that idea with the movement, right?
But yeah, let's say there's like a witch here, and I can't remember the ability you said she was doing.
Yeah,
let's
she's
just
just
say
using
gore
earth
roll.
skills. Yeah.
Yeah, gore roll. Oh, that's like not even a question. I'm gonna nocturne.
Guard.
I'm gonna nocturne and go behind. Like
Yeah.
the moment I see that skill. Nocturne's down, I still know that I have another option, albeit a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, no nocturne.
Well, let's start with the medium difficulty.
Okay.
Not even that difficult. You can use shattering actually, and you can use the third flow that sends you forward. And if you aim yourself to the side, you can go past your opponent and get a float.
You just get behind her.
It's unprotected, so you have to be aware, is that ability they're using? If it's gore roll, I might be, it just depends on what you're seeing.
Yeah.
If there's a CC in their rotation, be careful because then you're going to get CC'd that way. But now the third option that I'll do, that a lot of players actually knew me pretty well for performing this, let's say super consistently in Battle Arena during duels, is I'll airstrike past my opponent, turn my camera, and come out. When you come out, it does like an uppercut, which is a float. And when you slam down an airstrike, it's a bound. So for me, if I don't have any of the other two options, I'll just airstrike. Well, okay, well, I know we said consistency. Hear me out.
You're rusty.
No, I'm not. There's not a lot of room on this table for me to just whip my mouse around. So hold on.
Okay.
Take two. I'll aim myself past my opponent, airstrike, and then come out behind. And right there, I could be a lot more closer too. Like right there, I landed on the bound. You can do it so close that the moment you appear out of airstrike, it just instantly floats.
So you're using the camera like sort of directional input to turn right at the end of the airstrike, getting the CC right. Okay. Yeah.
And right there, I actually, well, you weren't looking.
So
I was able to do it.
Okay.
So, just to prove that I can.
No, it happened.
Just so you know, I'm on a small surface. There's a little bit of delay when I click the input, and just.
I'll take.
I still
your word
got
for
it.
But I think the point that we wanted to get across is that. Once you are fluent,
you're able to just. I don't have to think about any of that.
You're just now more focused on, because you don't have to spend all that, what do you call it, like RAM?
My brain
bandwidth.
RAM.
Because you don't have to spend the bandwidth on thinking about the character control at all. You can instead focus on expressing ideas.
Yes.
Right, like how do I get behind a forward guard? And let's say you're playing against a bunch of like casters, like or like suck casters or like archers, suck rangers. Let's say you're like about to die to any kind of range poke, right? How do you retreat without taking damage?
The safest bet is going to be dusk into balance strike, into dusk again, into airstrike. Now you're at the point like where you're far enough to use airstrike so that the end that's unprotected before Vidir strike isn't too risky.
Sure.
And you could even go further than that. Let's say after the airstrike, we can go into spirit hunt, into trap, into nebula, into shattering, into the backward shattering flow. Yeah. And that's all frontal guard that's protecting me from any like stray range damage that might be being sent my way.
Yeah. And also like when you block skills, you also block like the move speed debuffs, attack speed debuffs.
Right, which is super important.
So
that's why you want to start with iframes.
Because you're trying to run away.
Right, iframes to avoid the debuffs, frontal guard to also avoid taking damage in the debuffs as well.
And you could even mix it if you really needed to.
Right, it doesn't have to be the same.
It doesn't have to be the same every time. So again, not exactly worried about how or what buttons to press.
Because I already know.
Yeah, more concerned with at this moment in time.
How do I live?
How do I live?
Like how do I stay alive?
The idea is to stay alive.
I need to live.
How exactly? So
and
I think
you only do that when you know capabilities.
You only do that once you have the character control down.
And
we honestly like
we could go into it for a while.
On this, go repeat ourselves all day.
Class control.
That's number one. I think if there's anything to get out of it, just know I'm not saying you have to play Ranger for 8 years like I did. Okay, that's not necessary. Okay, I'm just a big Ranger fan.
You played Ranger for 8 years? I didn't know that.
I played her during the alpha also. Like the first character I made, Ranger, in the alpha. Then the next alpha or beta, whatever it was.
Here's a question: do you have more than one Ranger?
I have 3. I know there's some people who are like, I love Lon or something. I'm just gonna make 28 Lons on my account. I'm not.
Why do you have 3 Rangers?
A long time ago, when we had to do the Valencia quest line to get another Awakened Spirit Crystal, or to get like the Valencia 7 AP ring.
Yes.
Yeah, for like because back then it's like, Primarch Shadow backup, right? 7 AP Valencia ring.
That's crazy.
So I was like, okay, I gotta have 2 of those rings. Am I gonna make a new class I don't know how to play and go through the whole slog of a Valencia questline that it was back then? No, I'm just gonna play Ranger so I don't have to like think about like learning a new class while I do this questline. So that's what I did. That's why I have 3 Rangers. That's
turn off your brain.
Yeah, exactly. Because I don't have to spend any of that.
It's kind of
the RAM,
true.
The bandwidth. Of course, I think that's super important. So what makes a good PvP player, Black Desert? We went over it. Class control. Probably, I think
that kind of like.
If you can get to that point, you're probably better than most players. I'm not saying that a lot of players just end up re-rolling too much and don't ever get good at a class, but you gotta sit down, appreciate your class a lot. Like this knight, he jumps around like this, right?
The grass is always gonna be greener.
Yeah, you could limit yourself by looking at other classes, making unfair comparisons, like, why does Dracania move in such a way and I can't and stuff. But if you just focus on those kind of things, you can't improve. Right? That's not important. It's important to know that Dracania can move like that. That Awakening Nova can hit you that quickly. Yeah. That Warrior can run out of the gate in Solari and get to you in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Sometimes 3 seconds. It's important to know that the ninja can get behind you like this, but you need to know what you can do, not just what other class can do.
Right. But it is good to take a look at classes, like it's not necessarily bad, like once you like, finally put your footing on a class and understood it, just because it gives you the ability to now know how another class plays. But that is a topic for a different time.
All right. So then, with that, I think we can move on to episode 2. What do you think?
Sure.
We didn't talk too much about it.